The air in Ikeja always carried the scent of diesel fumes, frying plantain, and the faint, sweet rot of overripe mangoes from the market stalls that lined every available inch of roadside. It was 2022, and Lagos refused to slow down, even as the sun dipped low and the generators kicked in with their relentless growl. In a narrow two-room flat on a street off Allen Avenue, Victor Okoro sat on the edge of their sagging mattress, staring at the salary slip in his hand. The figures hadn't changed in 3 years, 85,000 Nigerian nairas net after deductions. Enough for rent if they skipped 1 or 2 meals, but never enough for dreams. Grace, his wife of 4 years, moved quietly in the tiny kitchen area separated only by a faded curtain. She stirred a pot of jollof rice over the single-burner stove, the flame flickering blue against the gathering dusk. Her wrapper was tied high under her arms, sleeves rolled up, sweat beading on her forehead despite the ceiling fan that wheezed more than it cooled. "Victor, come and eat before it gets cold," she called softly, not looking up. Her voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had learned long ago that complaints changed nothing. He folded the slip and tucked it into his pocket. "I'm not hungry tonight." She paused, spoon hovering. "You say that every Friday. Then by midnight you're raiding the pot like a thief." A small smile tugged at his lips despite himself. Grace had that effect, turning his frustration into something almost bearable. They had met at the university in Enugu, both studying business administration, both dreaming of escaping the villages their parents still clung to. Marriage came quickly after graduation, fueled by optimism and the promise of city life. Now, 4 years later, the city had swallowed their optimism whole. Victor stood and joined her, leaning against the chipped formica counter. "They're talking layoffs again at the office. The new manager from Abuja is cutting costs. Shipping volumes are down because of the dollar nonsense." Grace ladled rice into 2 mismatched plates, adding stew thick with goat meat she'd stretched with extra beans. "God will provide, Victor. He always does." He wanted to argue, God hadn't paid the NEPA bill last month, but he swallowed the words. Instead, he took his plate and sat at the small plastic table that doubled as their dining room, study, and occasional ironing board. They ate in companionable silence, the sounds of the street filtering through the louvered windows, hawkers calling pure water, Okodas revving past, children laughing in the compound next door. Grace finished first and pushed her plate aside. "I've been thinking," she said. "The school down the road, St. Mary's Secondary, they need someone to sell food during break. Rice and stew, maybe beans on Thursdays. The children complain the canteen is too expensive." Victor raised an eyebrow. "You want to hawk at a school?" "Not hawk. Sell properly. I'll start small, 1 big cooler. I can cook here in the morning, take it by bus. The profit might cover our light bill, maybe more." He studied her face. Grace was beautiful in a quiet way, dark skin glowing under the single bulb, eyes bright with determination. She had always been the practical one, the one who prayed at 5 a.m. and still found time to balance their meager budget. "You'll tire yourself," he said. "I'm already tired, Victor. Tired of watching every kobo like it might run away. Tired of your aunties calling from the village asking when we'll start having children. If I sit here waiting for your promotion, we'll wait forever." The mention of children stung. They had been trying since the first year of marriage, but nothing had come. Doctors said nothing was wrong, it was just timing. Victor's mother had suggested village herbs, but Grace refused anything that smelled of juju. She trusted only prayer and hard work. "All right," he said finally. "Start small. But promise me, if it's too much, you stop." She nodded, relief softening her features. The next Monday, Grace woke at 4 a.m. She pounded peppers, chopped onions until her eyes burned, and cooked enough rice to fill a large cooler. By 7 a.m., she was at the school gate, cooler balanced on her head, a small stool under her arm. The students swarmed her like bees, boys in rumpled uniforms begging for extra stew, girls giggling as they counted coins. By the end of break, the cooler was half empty, and her purse held 12,000 Nigerian nairas, more than when she left home. That evening, she counted the money on their bed while Victor watched, stunned. "See," she said, stacking notes. "This is just the first day." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "You're a wonder, Grace Okoro." For the first few months, life settled into a fragile rhythm. Victor left for the shipping company at 6:30 a.m., navigating the endless go-slow on the expressway. Grace cooked, sold, came home exhausted but smiling. They paid rent on time for the first time in a year. The fridge, second-hand and noisy, held actual food instead of just water sachets. Then came the day Grace found the amulet. She had gone to clean out her late mother's small box of belongings, stored under the bed since the funeral 2 years earlier. Among faded photos and old wrappers was a small leather pouch, tied with red thread. Inside lay a bronze pendant shaped like a coiled serpent, etched with tiny symbols she didn't recognize. A note in her mother's handwriting read, "For protection when the road gets dark. Wear it, my daughter. It belonged to your grandmother." Grace hesitated. Her church taught that such things were idols, doors to darkness. Yet her mother had been a prayer warrior, not a dibia. Perhaps it was just a family heirloom, nothing more. She slipped it around her neck, tucking it under her blouse. That night, as she prayed before sleep, kneeling beside the bed with Victor already snoring, she felt a strange warmth against her skin. Coincidence, she told herself. Weeks later, Victor came home one evening with news that shifted everything. "They're promoting me," he announced, voice trembling with disbelief. "Junior supervisor in logistics. 180,000 Nigerian naira starting. Backdated 3 months. Grace dropped the spoon she was holding. How? When? Someone reported a discrepancy in the manifests, containers going missing. I noticed it weeks ago but said nothing. The new audit caught it. They traced it to a clerk in accounts. My name came up as the one who flagged it first. He hadn't flagged anything officially, but the manager liked initiative. Victor had simply mentioned it in passing during a meeting. Now, suddenly, he was the honest one. Grace hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. "See? Doors are opening." They celebrated quietly, bought a small cake from a bakery down the street, shared a bottle of Maltina. As they laughed and talked about the future, Grace felt the amulet warm again against her chest. She pushed the thought away. Then, 3 months after the promotion, the first real sign of change arrived. Grace missed her period. The test strip showed 2 clear lines. She sat on the toilet floor, staring at it, joy and fear warring inside her. When she told Victor that evening, he lifted her off her feet, spinning her in their tiny living room until the neighbors banged on the wall. "A boy," he whispered against her hair. "It has to be a boy." Grace laughed. "We'll see." Daniel arrived in a rainy September, screaming into the world at a private clinic in Ikeja that cost half their savings. He was perfect. Dark curls, Victor's nose, Grace's eyes. Family from the village sent congratulations and small gifts. Even Victor's mother called, her voice thick with pride. As Grace nursed Daniel in the dim light of their room, Victor watched them both, something fierce and protective in his gaze. For the first time in years, the future felt possible. But late one night, after Daniel had finally slept, Victor found an anonymous note slipped under their door at work the next day. Plain white paper, typed words. "Your rise comes with shadows. Beware the cost." He stared at it for a long moment, then crumpled it and tossed it into the bin. Just jealousy, he told himself. Lagos was full of bitter people. Yet as he walked home through the humid evening, the city lights blurring in the drizzle, he couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen had begun to watch. The promotion changed everything, yet nothing at all. Victor still woke before dawn, but now he wore crisp shirts instead of the faded ones Grace had mended countless times. The salary bump meant they could breathe, really breathe, for the first time since moving to Lagos. Rent on the Ikeja flat was paid months in advance. The fridge hummed reliably, stocked with fresh tomatoes, eggs, and even occasional frozen chicken. Grace's rice business had grown too. She now employed 2 girls from the neighborhood to help with deliveries to nearby offices during lunch hours. The cooler had multiplied to 3, and she'd added fried plantain and moi moi to the menu. Customers called her Mama Daniel, a title that made her smile even on the hottest days. They moved to Soyulir 6 months after Daniel's first birthday. The new flat had 3 bedrooms, one for them, one for Daniel, and a spare that Grace immediately turned into a small storage for her cooking supplies. The building had a generator that ran during outages, a luxury that felt almost sinful. Neighbors were friendlier here. No one banged on walls when laughter carried too far. Victor came home earlier most evenings, playing with Daniel on the living room rug, teaching him to stack plastic blocks into wobbly towers. Grace gave birth to Sophia 2 years later, in the dry season when harmattan dust painted everything ochre. The delivery was smooth, the baby girl arriving with a full head of hair and lungs that could wake the entire compound. Victor held her gingerly at first, as if she might break, then pressed his lips to her tiny forehead. "Another princess," he said, voice thick. Grace watched him, searching for disappointment, but found only wonder. The amulet still hung around her neck, warm at odd moments, like when Sophia first latched or when Victor whispered thanks to God in the quiet hours. The whispers started subtly. Victor's mother called more often from Enugu, asking pointed questions. "When will you give us a boy to carry the name forward?" His uncles at family gatherings in the village spoke of inheritance, land portions that traditionally went to sons. Victor laughed it off in public, but Grace saw the tightness in his jaw. She prayed harder, lighting candles at church, asking for peace more than boys. Olivia came next, then Mia, then Isabella, each birth spaced roughly 2 years apart, each one healthy and loud. The flat filled with the sounds of girlhood, braiding sessions that lasted hours, arguments over who wore the pink dress, homework battles under the single fluorescent light. Daniel, the eldest, became the protector, carrying Isabella on his back when she tired, helping Sophia with her letters. Grace ran her business like a small empire now, catering small events for churches and birthdays. She hired a third helper and bought a used motorcycle for deliveries. Money flowed in steadily, enough to enroll the children in a decent private school nearby. Victor rose further at the shipping company. From junior supervisor to logistics coordinator, then assistant manager. His desk moved closer to the window overlooking the Apapa docks, where massive containers stacked like colorful Lego bricks. He wore ties now, carried a company ID card that got him past security without questions. Colleagues respected him. Juniors called him Ogre Victor. He brought home stories of deals closed, ships unloaded faster because of his schedules. Grace listened, proud, but noticed how his phone buzzed more often after hours. One evening in 2028, as rain hammered the zinc roof, Victor came home late, smelling faintly of beer and perfume. Grace said nothing, just warmed his food and watched him eat in silence. The next day she found a business card in his trouser pocket. Evelyn Adebayo, Business Development Executive, same company. Elegant font, Lagos address. Grace tucked it back, heart pounding. She told herself it meant nothing. Men in offices had cards. But the late nights increased. Victor claimed meetings, site visits, networking drinks. He missed Olivia's school play, Mia's first communion rehearsal. When Grace asked, he snapped, "You think this money falls from heaven? Someone has to work for it." She swallowed the hurt. Instead, she poured energy into the children. Sophia showed talent for drawing, sketches of Lagos streets, market women, the family laughing around the table. Olivia devoured books, reciting facts about space and dinosaurs. Mia danced everywhere, turning the living room into a stage. Isabella, the youngest, clung to Grace like a shadow, whispering secrets only mothers understand. One afternoon, Victor returned early, face flushed with excitement. "They're sending me to training in Abuja next month. 2 weeks. All expenses paid. If I do well, promotion to full manager." Grace forced a smile. "That's wonderful." He pulled her close. "We'll move to Lekki soon. A proper house. The girls will have their own rooms." She nodded, but the amulet felt heavier that night. As she prayed, it warmed against her skin, almost burning. She wondered if it was a warning. The corporate intrigue began quietly. A man approached Victor at a company mixer, tall, sharp suit, representing a rival logistics firm. "We hear you're good with manifests," he said casually over drinks. "Containers sometimes go missing. Information like that could be valuable. Very valuable." Victor laughed it off. "I'm not that kind of man." But the seed was planted. The rival offered numbers, enough to buy land in the village, send the children abroad someday. Victor declined again, but kept the man's card. He told no one, not even Grace. The guilt gnawed at him in quiet moments, but ambition whispered louder. Daniel, now 12, won the school science fair with a project on solar-powered water pumps, something practical for Nigeria's unreliable grid. The prize was small cash and a certificate, but the local paper ran a photo, Daniel in his uniform, beaming beside his model. Victor missed the event, another meeting. Grace framed the clipping anyway, hung it on the wall. That same week, Victor's phone rang late. He stepped outside to answer, voice low. Grace pretended to sleep, but heard fragments. Just data. No risk. Think about it. When he returned, she asked, "Work?" "Colleague," he muttered, avoiding her eyes. The family gathered for Sophia's 8th birthday. Jollof rice, chicken, small cake with too much icing. Neighbors came, music played from a Bluetooth speaker. Victor danced with Isabella on his shoulders, laughing loudly. For a moment, everything felt right. But later, as Grace cleared plates, she found another anonymous note in Victor's work bag, slipped inside his laptop case. "The shadows grow longer. Choose wisely, or they will choose for you." Her hand trembled. She burned the note in the kitchen sink, watching flames curl the paper to ash. The amulet pulsed warm again, insistent. Victor's next promotion came swiftly. Manager of operations. Salary doubled. They began looking at houses in better areas, Ikeja, perhaps Victoria Island. Grace's business thrived. She registered it properly, opened a small bank account. The children excelled, Daniel top of his class, Sophia winning art competitions, Olivia reading university-level books. Yet tension simmered beneath the surface. Victor's relatives visited more often, praising the boys they assumed would come next. 5 girls is a blessing, his mother said sweetly, but a son secures the lineage. Victor smiled tightly. Grace prayed nightly for understanding, for strength. One evening, after the children slept, Victor sat with Grace on the balcony. The city lights glittered below. He took her hand. "I'm grateful for you," he said quietly. "For everything." She searched his face. "Then why do you stay away so much?" He hesitated. "Pressure. The job, expectations." She nodded, not satisfied but unwilling to fight. The amulet rested cool against her skin for the first time in months. But as Victor drifted to sleep that night, Grace lay awake, listening to the hum of generators and distant sirens. Something was shifting. She felt it in her bones. The rise had come, yes. But shadows, as the notes warned, were gathering at the edges. And in the quiet, she wondered how long the light would hold. The air in Sawyer had grown thicker with the onset of the rainy season, turning the streets into muddy rivers and the skies into perpetual grey. It was 20:30 now, and Lagos pulsed with its usual frenzy, Danfo buses honking through puddles, market women shouting prices over the din, and the ever-present hum of generators battling the frequent blackouts. In their 3-bedroom flat, Grace Okoro moved like a shadow, her hands never idle. The children were her anchor. Daniel, now 14 and towering like his father, helped with homework for the younger ones. Sophia, 10, sketched vibrant scenes of Lagos life on scraps of paper. Olivia, 8, buried herself in books borrowed from the school library. Mia, 6, danced to high-life music from the radio, and Isabella, 4, followed Grace everywhere, clutching a worn doll. Grace's business had evolved into a modest catering service. She no longer hawked at the school gate. Instead, she supplied meals to corporate events and weddings, employing 5 women from the neighborhood. Her kitchen buzzed with activity, pounding yam, stirring egusi soup, frying akara balls. The income supplemented Victor's salary, allowing them to save for a down payment on a house in Lekki. Yet, despite the outward prosperity, a quiet unease had settled over their home like the harmattan dust that lingered long after the dry winds had gone. Victor had changed. His promotions had come one after another, the latest elevating him to senior manager of operations at the shipping company. He oversaw a team of 20, coordinated with international partners, and traveled occasionally to Abuja or Port Harcourt for meetings. The money was good, enough for private school fees, a second-hand Toyota Camry, and even small investments in stocks. But the man who came home each night was not the same Victor who had once spun Grace around in their tiny Ikeja kitchen. He was distant, his phone a constant companion that he guarded like a secret. Late nights became the norm, excused as client dinners or emergency audits. Grace smelled unfamiliar scents on his clothes, sweet perfumes mixed with the sharp tang of whiskey. She confronted him once, early in the shift, after finding a lipstick stain on his collar. "Victor, who's Evelyn?" she asked quietly, holding up the shirt like evidence. He froze, then laughed it off. "A colleague. We had a team lunch. She must have hugged me goodbye. Why are you going through my things?" "I'm not. I was washing. Tell me the truth." His eyes hardened. "The truth is I'm working my back off for this family. For you and those girls. Always girls. My mother asks every call, When will we have more boys?
The lineage, Grace. It matters.
The words stung like a slap. Grace touched the amulet under her blouse, feeling its familiar warmth.
God gives what he gives.
The children are blessings. Blessings that won't carry the name, he muttered, turning away. That night, as rain lashed the windows, Grace prayed longer than usual at the small altar in their bedroom, a Bible, a candle, and a framed photo of the family. The amulet grew hot against her skin, almost painfully so. She whispered pleas for protection, for her marriage, for the shadows she sensed creeping in. When she finally slipped into bed, Victor was already asleep, his back to her. The next morning, Victor left early for work, kissing the children goodbye but barely glancing at Grace. At the office in Apapa, the dock stretched out like a chaotic maze of cranes and containers, the sea air thick with salt and diesel. His desk was piled with manifests, shipments from China, Europe, the US. But his mind wandered to Evelyn Adebayo. She had joined the company a year ago, transferred from the Abuja branch. Tall, with skin like polished ebony and a laugh that turned heads, Evelyn was everything Grace wasn't: bold, ambitious, unburdened by children. Their flirtation started innocently, shared coffees, inside jokes about the boss's bad ties. Then came the after-work drinks at a bar in Victoria Island, where the elite sipped cocktails under neon lights. "You're destined for more, Victor," Evelyn had said one night, her hand brushing his. "You could run this place. Or start your own." He'd smiled, flattered. "With what? I have a family." "Family holds you back sometimes. Look at me, free to chase opportunities." That conversation lingered. Now, as he reviewed a suspicious manifest, containers marked for electronics but weighing oddly heavy, his phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Lunch? New spot in Ikoyi. My treat." He hesitated, then replied, "Yes." Meanwhile, Grace dropped the children at school and headed to her catering kitchen in a rented space nearby. As she supervised the preparation of jollof for a corporate lunch, her mind raced. The amulet had been acting strange, warming at random, as if alerting her to something unseen. Last week, during a prayer meeting at church, it had vibrated slightly when the pastor spoke of hidden enemies in the home. "Grace, you look troubled," said Aunt Ngozi, her closest friend from church, as they chopped onions side by side. Grace sighed. "Victor, his changing. Late nights, secrets." Ngozi nodded knowingly. "Men in Lagos. Success goes to their heads. Pray, my sister, and watch." That afternoon, Victor met Evelyn at an upscale restaurant overlooking the lagoon. She wore a fitted dress that accentuated her figure, her hair in elegant braids. They ordered grilled fish and plantain, but the conversation quickly turned personal. "My village people expect me to marry soon," Evelyn said, sipping wine. "But I want a man with vision. Not some clerk." Victor leaned in. "I have vision. But Grace, the kids. Girls, right? All girls after the boy. In my family, we value strong sons. Perhaps it's a sign." The words echoed his mother's. Victor felt a pull, a dangerous allure. As they left, Evelyn slipped her hand into his. "Come to my place sometime. Just to talk." He didn't say no. Back home, Grace found an anonymous envelope slipped under the door. Plain white, no stamp. Inside, a typed note: "He meets her at noon. Shadows hide betrayals. Beware the cost of ambition." Her heart pounded. She crumpled it, but the words burned in her mind. Was it a prank? A jealous neighbor? Or something more sinister? That evening, Victor came home late again. Grace waited up, the note hidden in her drawer. "Where were you?" she asked, voice steady. "Meeting ran long." "Why the interrogation?" She searched his eyes. "I found a note. Someone knows something." He paled slightly but recovered. "What note?" "Probably rubbish. Throw it away." But Grace didn't. She tucked it with the others, the ones Victor had dismissed at work. The espionage subplot deepened without his knowing. The rival company contact had called again, offering 5 million Nigerian nairas for shipment details. Victor had toyed with the idea, rationalizing it as a one-time thing to secure the family's future. He hadn't accepted, yet, but the temptation grew. Days blurred into weeks. Victor's affair with Evelyn intensified. Stolen moments in her Lekki apartment, whispers of a future together.
Leave her, Evelyn urged. I'll give you sons. Real heirs.
Grace sensed it all, though she had no proof. The amulet warmed constantly now, a silent alarm. One night, as she prayed, a vision flashed, brief, like a dream. Victor in a car, shadows closing in. She gasped, clutching the pendant. The children noticed the tension. Daniel, perceptive beyond his years, asked, "Mum, is Dad okay?" She forced a smile.
He's busy. Pray for him.
Then came the science fair. Daniel's project, a model of a sustainable water filtration system for Lagos slums, won first place. The event was at the school hall, packed with parents and flashing cameras. Grace sat proudly in the front row, Isabella on her lap, the girls cheering as Daniel received his trophy.
Victor was absent. Urgent work, his text read.
Grace's heart ached, but she hid it. That night, as the family celebrated with cake, Victor arrived late, disheveled.
Sorry, he muttered. Congrats, son.
Daniel nodded coolly.
Thanks.
Later, in bed, Grace whispered, "You missed it."
Again.
Victor exploded. "I'm providing. This house, the schools, all me. And what do I get? Complaints and girls who won't inherit a thing."
Grace recoiled. The girls are our joy. God.
God? Where was God when my father died poor?
I make my own luck now.
He stormed out, slamming the door. Grace wept silently, the amulet scorching her skin. The next day, at work, Victor found another note on his desk. The rival offers more. But betrayal cuts both ways. Choose. Panic set in. Who knew about the contact? He shredded the note, but paranoia took root. Was it a colleague? A spy? Evelyn noticed his distraction during their next rendezvous.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Just stress.
She smiled slyly.
I could help.
I have connections. The rival firm, my cousin works there. Victor's blood ran cold.
What?
She laughed. Relax. It's opportunity. Pass some info, get paid. We could start fresh. The pieces clicked. Was Evelyn part of it? A setup? He pulled away.
I need time.
But the seed of doubt grew. That night, driving home through Lagos traffic, Victor's phone rang, an unknown number. "Mr. Okoro, the deal is on. Transfer the manifests by Friday, or we expose you." "Expose what? I haven't done anything."
Laughter.
Yet. But we know about Evelyn. And the notes? Just warnings. The line went dead. Victor swerved, nearly hitting a keek. Heart racing, he pulled over. Meanwhile, Grace visited Aunt Ngozi. "I think he's cheating." Ngozi sighed. "Follow him. Or pray for revelation." Grace chose prayer. That evening, as she knelt, the amulet glowed faintly, actually glowed, casting a soft light in the dim room. She stared, terrified. Was it juju? Her mother's note echoed, "For protection." A knock at the door startled her. It was a neighbor, Mama Chidi. "Grace, I saw Victor's car at that fancy estate in Lekki. With a woman. Thought you should know." Grace nodded numbly. The shadows were closing. Victor returned home subdued, but Grace said nothing. Suspense built in the silence. The children slept, unaware. 2 days later, the corporate espionage escalated. Victor received an email, anonymous, with attachments, photos of him with Evelyn, timestamps of his meetings. Subject, pay or perish. He deleted it, sweating. At lunch with Evelyn, he confronted her. "Are you spying on me?" She feigned shock. "What? No. I love you, Victor." But her eyes flickered. He left, unresolved. That night, a storm raged. Grace couldn't sleep. The amulet pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat. She rose, checking on the children. In the living room, she found Victor staring out the window. "We need to talk," he said suddenly. Her pulse quickened. "About what?" "Everything. The job, mistakes." Before he could continue, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it,
face draining of color. "What is it?" Grace asked. "Nothing." But his hands shook. The call was from the rival. "Manifests now. Or your family pays." Victor hung up, mind reeling. He couldn't involve Grace. Not yet. As they went to bed, uneasy truce in place, Grace touched the amulet. It cooled suddenly, as if the immediate danger had passed. But she knew better. The cracks were widening, and something dark lurked beneath. The next morning, Daniel came to Grace with a worried frown. "Mum, I found this in Dad's jacket." He held out a business card, Evelyn Adebayo. Grace took it, her world tilting. "Thank you, son." Victor left for work, oblivious. At the office, he decided, no deal. He'd report the threats anonymously. But as he drafted the email, another note appeared on his keyboard. Too late. The shadows have chosen. He bolted upright, scanning the empty office. Who was doing this? Meanwhile, Grace made a decision. She'd follow him tomorrow. The amulet warmed in agreement. The suspense thickened like Lagos fog. Betrayal loomed, secrets festered, and the family teetered on the edge. What would break first? The marriage, the career, or the man himself? Victor's drive home was tense. Traffic crawled, horns blaring. In the rearview mirror, he swore he saw a shadowy figure in a following car. Paranoia? Or real? He accelerated, heart pounding. The figure vanished. At home, Grace greeted him normally, but her eyes held questions. Dinner was silent, the children's chatter filling the void. That night, as thunder rolled, Victor dreamed of shadows swallowing him whole. He woke screaming. Grace held him. "What is it?" "Nothing," he lied. "Just a nightmare." But the amulet on her chest burned hot, unseen. The foundation cracked further. And the storm was just beginning. The Lekki house smelled of new paint and ambition. White walls, marble tiles that gleamed under recessed lights, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a small garden where palm trees swayed like silent sentinels. Victor had signed the lease 6 months after Evelyn first whispered the word future in his ear. It was 2032, and Lagos had rewarded his restlessness with a promotion to head of logistics, a title that came with a 6-figure salary, a company driver, and enough leeway to disappear for days without questions. Grace remained in Sawyer. The children still filled the 3-bedroom flat with noise and life, but the air had grown thinner. Victor's visits dwindled to weekends, then to hurried phone calls, then to silence punctuated by bank alerts, school fees paid, rent transferred, groceries delivered by a service he never mentioned. He told Grace it was temporary, transition phase, he called it. She knew better. The traditional marriage to Evelyn happened quietly in a small hall in Victoria Island. No asso e-buy for the extended family, no village delegation from Enugu. Just a handful of colleagues, Evelyn in ivory lace, Victor in a charcoal suit, and a pastor who spoke quickly about unity and provision. Evelyn's family, distant cousins from Augun State, clapped politely. Afterward, they drove straight to the Lekki house. That night, Victor lay beside her on Egyptian cotton sheets and felt, for the first time in years, like the man he had always believed he was meant to be. Evelyn conceived quickly. Ethan arrived in late 2033, a boy with Victor's broad forehead and Evelyn's sharp cheekbones. The birth announcement went out on WhatsApp groups Victor had long ago muted from Grace's side. Photos showed him cradling the infant in a private hospital suite, smiling wide enough to show teeth. Grace saw the images when Sophia, scrolling Instagram, gasped and showed her mother the screen. "Mummy, is that Daddy?" Grace stared at the photo until her eyes blurred. Then she handed the phone back. "Yes, that's your father." She did not cry. Not then. Noah followed 18 months later, then Liam in quick succession. 3 boys in 4 years. Victor paraded them like trophies. He posted family portraits on his new private Instagram, Evelyn in designer dresses, the boys in matching outfits, captions dripping with gratitude, blessed beyond measure. #family first, #grateful heart. Grace never commented. She never followed the account. But Daniel, now 17 and preparing for university entrance exams, saw every post. He saved screenshots, not out of sentiment, but calculation. At home in Sawyer, Grace rebuilt what Victor had dismantled. She expanded the catering business into a full commercial kitchen in Age, hired 10 staff,
secured contracts with 3 banks and a telecom company for staff canteens. The income allowed her to move the family to a 4-bedroom duplex in Maryland, still modest compared to Lekki, but there's no more landlord drama, no more shared generator noise. The girls thrived. Sophia won a National Art Scholarship and began exhibiting in small galleries. Olivia scored 320 in JAM and gained admission to study medicine at the University of Lagos. Mia joined a dance academy and performed at eco hotel events. Isabella, the quiet one, discovered coding through free online courses and built simple apps that earned her small prizes. Daniel became the family's quiet engine. He tutored his sisters, managed the household budget when Grace traveled for catering gigs, and applied relentlessly for international scholarships. Every night he studied until 2 a.m., fueled by instant coffee and determination. He told no one about the rage that simmered beneath his calm exterior. Not the way his father had paraded new sons while leaving 5 daughters behind, not the way Victor's calls had grown colder, shorter, until they stopped altogether. Victor, meanwhile, lived in a bubble of excess. The Lekki house filled with toys, gadgets, and the constant chatter of small boys. Evelyn hosted brunches for other corporate wives, served champagne at 11 a.m., and spoke of our empire as though Victor had built it alone. But the empire had cracks. The corporate espionage that had haunted Victor never fully vanished. He had refused the rival company's final offer, but whispers persisted. Someone in accounts had been quietly leaking manifests, small consignments disappearing, insurance claims filed, profit siphoned. Fingers pointed in every direction, including Victor's. An internal audit began. He laughed it off in board meetings, but at night he drank more. Whiskey, then brandy, then whatever dulled the edge. Evelyn noticed. "You're distracted," she said one evening, watching him stare at his phone. "Work stress." She rolled her eyes. "Always work. Or is it your other family?" He flinched. "Don't start. You left them. You chose us. Act like it." But the boys were not the disciplined heirs Victor had imagined. Ethan, at 6, threw tantrums that shattered glass. Noah, 4, refused school and bit teachers. Liam, barely 2, already showed a stubborn streak that bordered on cruelty. Nannies came and went. Evelyn blamed the staff. Victor blamed fatigue. Neither admitted the truth. Indulgence had bred entitlement. Then came the accident. It happened on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway during a late-night drive back from a client meeting in Abeokuta. Victor was behind the wheel of the company SUV, radio playing low, mind drifting between guilt and justification. A truck ahead braked suddenly. He swerved. Tires screamed. The vehicle spun, clipped the median, flipped once, then landed on its side in the bush. He woke in Lagos University Teaching Hospital, ribs cracked, left arm in a sling, face stitched in 3 places. Evelyn arrived hours later, mascara streaked, complaining about traffic. The boys stayed home with the latest nanny. Grace heard the news from Aunt Ngozi, who had a cousin working at LUTH. She did not rush to his bedside. Instead, she knelt in her new prayer corner, Bible open, candle flickering, and prayed for his healing. The amulet, which she still wore every day, grew warm again, steady, almost comforting. When the warmth faded, she knew he would live. Victor was discharged after 10 days. Evelyn drove him home in silence. At the Lekki gate, she said, "You could have died. Think about that next time you drive angry." He stared at her. "Angry? You've been angry for years, Victor. At Grace. At the girls. At God for not giving you sons the first time. Now you have them, and you're still angry." He said nothing. Inside, the boys ran to him, shouting "Daddy." But their hugs felt perfunctory, rehearsed. That night he drank alone on the balcony, watching the lagoon glitter under security lights. For the first time in years, he thought of Grace, not with resentment, but with a dull ache. The anonymous notes returned. This time they came to the Lekki house. Slipped under the gate, tucked into his briefcase at work. Always the same typewriter font. "The road you chose has many turns. Some lead to ruin. You cannot outrun what you abandoned. Shadows remember." Victor burned them in the kitchen sink, but the words lingered. He began checking his rearview mirror obsessively, jumping at sudden noises. Evelyn mocked him. "You're paranoid. Too many Nollywood films." But he wasn't imagining it. At the office, the audit concluded. No direct evidence tied Victor to the missing consignments, but suspicion clung. His performance reviews dipped. Colleagues whispered. He started coming home earlier, drinking earlier, sleeping poorly. Evelyn, sensing the shift, grew colder. She began attending events without him, dinners, launches, charity galas. She posted photos with powerful men, oil executives, politicians, telecom CEOs. Captions read, "Networking never stops. #boss lady #empire building." Victor confronted her one night after seeing a photo of her laughing beside a former minister.
"Who is he?" "A contact. Business." "You're embarrassing me." She laughed.
"You embarrassed yourself years ago when you walked out on your first family.
Don't lecture me on appearances."
The argument escalated. He accused her of using him. She accused him of weakness. The boys, woken by the shouting, stood in the hallway in pajamas, eyes wide. Ethan asked, "Are you getting divorced like Uncle Tunde?" Victor snapped, "Go back to bed."
They scattered.
Evelyn stared at him with something close to pity. "You're becoming the man you ran from." He left the house that night, drove aimlessly through Lekki Phase 1, past the empty plots and half-built mansions. He parked near the waterfront, cut the engine, and cried, ugly, choking sobs that shook his frame. For the first time, regret tasted real. Meanwhile, in Maryland, Daniel received an email that changed everything. Subject, fully funded scholarship, Imperial College London, engineering. He stared at the screen for a full minute before opening it.
Acceptance. Tuition covered. Stipend. Accommodation. Flight.
He read it twice, 3 times. Then he went to Grace's room.
"Mum."
She looked up from her devotional.
"What is it, my son?"
He handed her the phone.
She read.
Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears came instantly. "God has done it," she whispered. Daniel knelt beside her. "I want to take you all with me. One by one. Sophia first, she can do foundation art. Then Olivia for pre-med. The others will follow. But you come last, when everything is ready."
Grace shook her head. "I'm fine here."
"No. You're not staying behind. Not anymore."
She touched his face. "We'll see."
But the decision was made. Over the next 18 months, the plan unfolded quietly. Daniel left for London in September 2034. Sophia followed 6 months later on an art scholarship. Olivia deferred Unilag and applied to Manchester for biomedical sciences. She was accepted. Mia auditioned for performing arts program in Birmingham and won a spot. Isabella, still in secondary school, began online courses with UK universities, positioning herself for direct entry. Victor knew none of it. He was drowning in his own life. The boys' behavior worsened. Ethan was suspended from school for fighting. Noah stole from a classmate. Liam refused to speak to anyone but the nanny. Evelyn spent more nights out. Victor's drinking turned clinical. He missed deadlines, snapped at staff, lost a major contract. The company issued a final warning. One evening in early 2036, Evelyn came home at 2 a.m., heels clicking on marble. Victor waited in the living room, lights off.
"Where were you?"
"Out."
"With who?"
"Does it matter?"
He stood. "You're my wife."
She laughed bitterly. "Wife? I'm your decoration. You wanted sons. You got them. Now you want control. I'm done pretending." She walked past him to the bedroom. He followed. "I gave you everything," he said. "You gave me children and a house. I gave you my youth. Balance sheets even." She began packing a suitcase. "Where are you going?" "To someone who sees me. Not just my womb." Victor grabbed her arm. "Who?" She yanked free. "A man who doesn't cry about his first family while sleeping in my bed." He staggered back. "You knew." "Everyone knows, Victor. Lagos is small." She left that night. The boys slept through it. The next morning, Ethan asked, "Where's Mummy?" Victor lied. "Visiting family." But the lie tasted like ash. Grace's exodus began quietly. Daniel arranged the first passport renewals. Sophia and Olivia left together in June 2036.
Mia followed in December.
Isabella completed secondary school early and joined them in early 2037. Grace stayed behind to tie up the business. She sold the kitchen to her head chef, kept the brand name, arranged for profits to flow into a trust for the children.
Victor heard rumors.
A colleague mentioned seeing Grace at the airport with suitcases.
He laughed it off. Impossible.
She would never leave without telling him. But one afternoon in March 2037, he drove to the Maryland duplex on impulse.
The gate was open. A for rent sign hung crookedly. He knocked. No answer.
A neighbor, an elderly woman watering plants, looked up.
You looking for Grace?
Yes.
My wife?
The woman studied him.
She left 6 months ago. Her children took her abroad. London, I think. They all went. Smart children. Good for them.
Victor felt the ground tilt.
When?
Last year.
Bit by bit.
She was the last. Said goodbye to everyone.
Smiling. Happy.
He stood there, mouth open, until the woman went back inside. He drove home in silence.
The Lekki house was quiet.
The boys were at boarding school now, Evelyn's decision after she moved in with the former minister in Banana Island. Victor lived alone with a bottle and regret. That night, he found one last anonymous note on the kitchen counter.
No envelope. Just paper. You reaped the wind. Now gather the whirlwind.
He sank to the floor, head in hands. The betrayal was complete, not just Evelyn's, not just his company's suspicions, but his own. He had traded love for legacy, loyalty for sons, grace for glamour, and lost everything. The Lekki house felt larger every day Victor spent alone in it. Echoes bounced off marble floors that no longer rang with children's footsteps or Evelyn's sharp heels. Ethan, Noah, and Liam had been enrolled in an expensive boarding school in Augun State, Evelyn's choice after she moved out. They need structure, she had said over the phone, voice flat. Not whatever you're giving them. Victor hadn't argued. He was too tired to argue. It was late 2037. The company had finally let him go. The termination letter arrived by courier on a Tuesday morning in October.
Gross misconduct. It read.
Failure to meet performance targets. Repeated breaches of company policy regarding alcohol consumption on premises. They didn't mention the missing consignments outright. No need. The whispers had solidified into evidence during the final audit. A junior analyst had come forward with screenshots of Victor's late-night emails, vague but damning. Enough to justify dismissal without severance. His company phone was deactivated before he even reached the office to collect his things. He drove home in the Camry, windows down, Lagos traffic indifferent to his ruin. Horns blared. Okada riders swerved past. A hawker thrust sachets of pure water against the glass at a red light. Victor stared straight ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. At home he poured a drink, his last bottle of Hennessy, half empty already. He sat on the balcony overlooking the lagoon and watched container ships crawl toward Apapa. Once those ships had carried his schedules, his decisions. Now they were someone else's. The boys came home for midterm break in November. They arrived with duffel bags and sullen expressions. Ethan, now 10, demanded a new phone because everyone at school has the latest iPhone. Noah, 8, refused to eat anything prepared by the remaining house help, she cooks like a villager. Liam, 6, clung to his tablet and ignored Victor entirely. Victor tried. He took them to Tarqua Bay for a day out. They complained about the sun, the sand, the boat ride. He bought them ice cream and new sneakers. They asked for more. When he said no, Ethan sneered, "Mummy gives us whatever we want when we're with her." Victor's hand twitched. He walked away, stood at the water's edge until the anger cooled to something colder. Evelyn picked them up at the end of the break in a black Range Rover driven by a uniformed chauffeur. She stepped out in oversized sunglasses and a silk jumpsuit, smelling of expensive perfume. The boys ran to her. She hugged them perfunctorily, then looked at Victor over their heads. "They'll stay with me full-time now," she said. "You can visit when you're stable." Stable. His voice cracked. "You're taking my sons. They're not happy here. And frankly, neither am I." She turned to leave. Victor grabbed her wrist, not hard, just enough to stop her. "Who's paying for all this?" he asked quietly. "The car. The school.
The flat in Banana Island. Evelyn pulled free. Someone who doesn't drink himself to sleep every night. Someone who doesn't cry about his first wife while pretending to build a future with me. She got into the car. The boys climbed in without looking back. The Range Rover pulled away, tail lights disappearing into the Lekki traffic. Victor stood in the driveway until the gate clanged shut. Then he went inside, locked every door, and drank until the room spun. The spiral accelerated. First the car, repossessed after 3 missed payments. Then the house, he couldn't afford the rent. The landlord gave him 30 days. He moved into a 1-bedroom self-contained flat in Bagada, a downgrade so steep it felt like falling through floors. The flat smelled of damp and previous tenants cooking. The mattress sagged. Cockroaches skittered across the kitchen counter at night. He tried to find work. Sent CVS, called old contacts. Most didn't answer. The few who did were polite but distant. Market is tough right now, Victor. We'll keep you in mind. One former colleague laughed outright. After what happened at the docks, no one touches you with a barge pole. He began drinking in the mornings to steady his hands. By afternoon he was slurring on calls he shouldn't have made. One night he showed up at a bar in Ikeja where old colleagues gathered. They bought him drinks out of pity, then left him there. He woke up on the sidewalk with his wallet gone and a bruise blooming across his cheekbone. The boys stopped answering his calls. Ethan blocked him on WhatsApp after Victor begged for a visit. "You're embarrassing," the last message read. Evelyn sent one final text, "Don't contact us again. The minister has lawyers. Use your energy to fix yourself." Victor laughed bitterly at the screen, then threw the phone against the wall. The screen cracked but still worked. He never fixed it. Meanwhile, across oceans, Grace's children built their new world. Daniel graduated from Imperial College with first-class honors in mechanical engineering. He landed a graduate role at Rolls-Royce in Derby, good salary, relocation package, future bright enough to blind. He rented a 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb and began the paperwork to bring his sisters over permanently. Sophia enrolled in a master's program in fine arts at Central St. Martin's. Her work, bold canvases blending Lagos street life with abstract grief, started attracting gallery interest. Olivia transferred to King's College London for medicine after excelling in her foundation year. Mia joined the English National Ballet School on a full scholarship, her discipline turning heads. Isabella, the youngest, gained direct entry to study computer science at UCL. She was already freelancing as an app developer, small projects that paid better than most graduate schemes. They spoke to Grace every day on video calls. She remained in Maryland a little longer than planned, winding down the last threads of the catering business. She sold the brand name to a young couple who promised to keep Mama Daniel's kitchen alive. The money went into a high-interest savings account in London under Daniel's name. In early 2038, Daniel flew back to Nigeria alone. He arrived unannounced. Grace opened the door and gasped, "My son." He hugged her so tightly she couldn't breathe. "It's time, Mum. Everything's ready. The visa. The flight. The house has a room just for you." She cried then, quiet, grateful tears. "I never thought. You never had to think. We did the thinking for you." They spent 2 weeks packing. Not much: clothes, photo albums, the Bible that had seen her through every storm, the amulet she still wore every day. Neighbors came to say goodbye. Aunt Ngozi prayed over her, tears streaming. "God has turned your mourning into dancing." The day before departure, Grace visited the old Sawyerleer flat. It was occupied by a young family now. She stood outside the gate for a long time, remembering the cramped nights, the laughter, the pain. Then she walked away without looking back. Victor heard about it from a mutual acquaintance at a drinking spot in Sawyerleer. "Grace left last week," the man said casually, nursing a star beer. "Her boy came and took her. London. All of them there now. Big house, they say." Victor stared into his glass. "When?" "Friday. Murtala Mohammed. Business class, I heard." He nodded slowly. The information settled in his chest like lead. That night he walked to the Maryland duplex. The for rent sign was gone. New tenants had moved in. Lights glowed in the windows. Laughter drifted out, children's laughter. He stood across the street under street lamp, watching shadows move behind curtains.
Then he turned and walked back to Bagada in the dark.
The drinking worsened. He lost weight. His hands shook constantly.
One evening in April 2038, he went to a bar in Kitu and drank until closing. On the way home, staggering along the expressway, he got into an argument with a group of area boys who demanded something for the boys.
He refused.
They beat him, fists, boots, one of them swinging a plank. He curled on the ground, tasting blood, until a passing patrol car scattered them. The police took him to the station. He spent the night in a cell that smelled of urine and despair. In the morning they let him go, no charges, just a warning. He limped home, ribs aching, face swollen. He lay on the thin mattress for 3 days, feverish, barely eating. On the 4th day he forced himself up, showered in cold water, and looked in the cracked mirror. The man staring back was a stranger, hollow eyes, greying beard, skin sallow. He thought of Grace, of Daniel's science fair he'd missed, of Sophia's first exhibition he'd never seen, of the girls growing into women without him there to clap. He opened his phone, cracked screen and all, and searched for Daniel's name on LinkedIn. The profile loaded slowly.
Professional headshot. Job title.
Location, Derby, United Kingdom.
Victor typed a message. Deleted it. Typed again. Daniel, it's your father. I'm sorry. For everything. If you ever let me explain. He stared at the send button for 10 minutes. Then pressed it. No reply came. He tried Sophia next. Then Olivia. Then Mia. Isabella. Same message, word for word. Silence. Finally he searched for Grace. No social media. No trace. But Daniel's profile listed a family home address in North London. Victor wrote it down on a scrap of paper. He sold the last things of value, a wristwatch, a gold chain, the cracked phone, and bought a one-way ticket to London. Economy. Middle seat. No luggage beyond a small backpack. At Murtala Mohammed Airport he stood in the check-in queue, passport trembling in his hand. The officer glanced at him, then at the ticket. Purpose of visit. Family, Victor said hoarsely. The officer stamped the passport. Safe journey. The flight was long. He didn't sleep. He stared out at clouds and rehearsed apologies he knew might never be heard. When the plane touched down at Heathrow, snow dusted the tarmac. Victor stepped into the arrivals hall, dazed by the cold, the lights, the orderliness. He had no plan beyond the address on the scrap of paper. He took the tube, Northern Line, change at King's Cross, emerge at High Barnet. Walked through quiet streets lined with brick houses and bare trees. Found the cul-de-sac. Number 17. Lights on in the windows. Smoke curling from the chimney. He stood at the gate for a long time. Snowflakes landed on his shoulders, melted against his skin. Then he lifted the knocker and let it fall. Inside, Grace heard the sound. She was in the kitchen, making agusi soup the way her mother taught her, pounded melon seeds, bitter leaf, stockfish. The children were scattered around the house, Daniel reading in the living room, Sophia sketching at the dining table, Olivia revising for exams, Mia stretching in the hallway, Isabella coding on her laptop. Grace wiped her hands on her apron and went to the door. She opened it. Victor stood there, thinner than she remembered, coat too light for the weather, eyes red-rimmed. Grace, he whispered. She stared at him. No anger. No joy. Just recognition. The amulet under her sweater remained cool against her skin. No warning, no warmth. Just stillness. Daniel appeared behind her. Then Sophia. Then the others. They stood in a semicircle, silent. Victor looked from face to face. I came to say I'm sorry, he said. His voice broke. I was wrong. About everything. No one moved. Grace spoke quietly. You should go, Victor. I don't have anywhere else. That's not our burden anymore. Daniel stepped forward. You made your choices, Dad. We made ours. Victor's shoulders sagged. Please. Just, let me see you sometimes. Let me try. Olivia shook her head. You didn't try when it mattered. Mia folded her arms. Isabella looked away. Grace touched Daniel's arm. Let him in. Just for a minute. Out of the cold. They stepped aside. Victor entered the warm house. The smell of agusi filled the air.
He looked around, bookshelves, framed certificates, children's art on the walls, a Christmas tree already up in the corner even though it was only November. He stood in the hallway, awkward, small. Grace faced him. You can sit for a moment. Then you leave. He nodded. They didn't offer him food. They didn't ask questions. They simply watched him. After 10 minutes, Grace said, "It's time." Victor rose. At the door he turned. "I never stopped loving you," he said to Grace. "Even when I was hating myself." She met his eyes. "Love doesn't abandon, Victor. It stays. Even when it hurts." He stepped outside. Snow fell thicker now. Grace closed the door softly. Inside, Daniel asked, "Are you okay, Mum?" She touched the amulet, cool, quiet. "I'm free," she said. Victor walked back to the tube station. He had no return ticket. No money for a hotel. He sat on a bench at High Barnet Station, snow gathering on his coat, and stared at the tracks. A train came. He didn't board it. Another came. He stayed. Hours passed. Eventually a policeman approached. "Sir? You all right?" Victor looked up. "I don't know where to go." The officer helped him to a shelter in central London. They gave him a bed, a hot meal, forms to fill. He filled them slowly, hands shaking. In the space for next of kin he wrote Grace's name. Then crossed it out. He wrote nothing. That night, in a room full of other broken men, Victor Okoro closed his eyes and dreamed of a small flat in Ikeja, a woman cooking jollof rice, children laughing, a life he had thrown away. When he woke, the dream was gone. And so was he, adrift in a city that didn't know his name. The shelter in Whitechapel smelled of institutional disinfectant and boiled cabbage. Victor had been there 3 weeks now, long enough for the initial shock of cold and anonymity to settle into a dull, persistent ache. Mornings began with lukewarm tea and a queue for the shower. Afternoons were spent in the common room watching daytime television with the volume low. Evenings, he sat on his narrow bunk staring at the ceiling, replaying every wrong turn like a film stuck on repeat. The social worker assigned to him, a young Nigerian woman named Amora, had been kind but firm. "You need to apply for indefinite leave to remain if you want to stay legally," she told him during their second meeting. "Asylum is difficult without persecution evidence. You're here as a visitor who overstayed. We can try humanitarian grounds, family ties, but you'll need cooperation from them." Victor shook his head. "They don't want me." Amora sighed. "Then you have to want yourself first. Sobriety. A job. Somewhere permanent. Start small." Small felt impossible. He had no national insurance number, no references, no clean clothes beyond what the shelter provided. But he tried. He attended the twice-weekly AA meetings in the basement. He listened to men with worse stories than his, heroin, prison, lost children, and felt a flicker of something that might have been hope. He washed dishes in the shelter kitchen for pocket money. He walked the streets of East London until his feet blistered, memorizing bus routes, avoiding eye contact with anyone who looked Nigerian. One grey February morning in 2039, he found a discarded copy of the Metro newspaper on a tube seat. A small article caught his eye. Nigerian artist Sophia Okoro's solo exhibition opens at Saatchi Gallery, blending Lagos nostalgia with diasporic grief. There was a photo, Sophia standing beside a large canvas of a crowded Lagos market, faces half in shadow, half in golden light. She looked older, poised, wearing a simple black dress and the same quiet smile she'd had as a child when she showed him her first drawings. Victor folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his coat pocket. He carried it for days, unfolding it in quiet moments like a talisman. That weekend he took the district line to Sloane Square, then walked to the Saatchi. The gallery was free entry on Saturdays. He stood outside for 20 minutes, snow melting on his shoulders, before stepping inside. The exhibition space was bright and sparse. Sophia's paintings dominated the walls, huge, textured works that captured the chaos and color of home. Danfo buses tilting in traffic, market women balancing trays, children playing in flooded streets after rain. One piece stopped him cold, a family portrait, abstract but unmistakable. A man in the background, half turned away, face obscured by shadow. 5 girls and a woman in the foreground, their figures warm and connected, bathed in light. The title card read, "The Leaving, 2037, Oil and Mixed Media." Victor stood before it for so long that an attendant asked if he was all right.
I'm fine, he lied.
He left without speaking to anyone. But he returned the next Saturday. And the next. On the fourth visit, Sophia was there, doing a walk-through for a small group of visitors. Victor stayed at the back, half hidden behind a pillar. She spoke softly about memory, displacement, forgiveness. Her voice hadn't changed. When the group dispersed, she lingered near the entrance, speaking to the curator. Victor stepped forward before courage failed him.
Sophia. She turned. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. Daddy.
The word hung between them, neither welcome nor rejection. I saw the article, he said. I wanted to see your work.
She folded her arms. You've seen it. I'm proud of you.
She looked away. You don't get to say that now.
I know. Silence stretched.
A cleaner moved past them, mop sloshing.
Sophia exhaled. Why are you here?
I don't know. To see if any of you were still breathing the same air as me.
We are, but not for you. He nodded. I'm trying to get clean. I'm in a shelter. I go to meetings.
She studied him, really looked. The hollow cheeks, the tremor in his hands, the cheap coat too thin for London winter. You look like death, she said quietly.
I feel like it. Another pause.
Mum knows you're here, she asked.
No. Don't tell her yet. She's happy. Really happy. Don't ruin it. I won't.
Sophia hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small card, her business card, embossed with her name and website. If you're serious about changing, call me in 3 months.
Not before. Prove it to yourself first.
Victor took the card like it was made of glass.
Thank you.
She turned and walked away. He watched her go, the same determined stride she'd had as a little girl running to show him a new drawing. 3 months later, May 2039, he called. She answered on the second ring.
You're still alive, she said. Barely. But yes. Where are you?
Still the shelter. But I have a cleaning job now, offices in Canary Wharf.
Night shift.
Pays enough for a shared room in Stratford.
Silence.
Come to the house on Sunday. 2 p.m. Mum will be there. The others too. Don't be late. Don't be drunk. Don't expect forgiveness.
I won't.
Sunday arrived cold and bright. Victor wore the best clothes he owned, a second-hand shirt and trousers from a charity shop. He bought a small bunch of lilies from a street vendor near Stratford Station. His hands shook the entire tube ride. He walked the familiar route from High Barnet Station. The house looked the same, warm lights in the windows, smoke from the chimney. He stood at the gate again, heart hammering. Daniel opened the door before he could knock.
You're early, Daniel said.
I didn't want to risk being late.
Daniel stepped aside. Victor entered.
The living room was full. Grace sat on the sofa, hands folded in her lap. Olivia beside her, arms crossed. Mia leaning against the wall. Isabella at the dining table with her laptop open but closed now. Sophia stood near the window. No one spoke. Victor cleared his throat. Thank you for letting me come. Grace looked at him, really looked. The amulet rested against her sweater, cool and still.
Sit, she said.
He sat on the edge of an armchair. No one offered tea. Daniel spoke first. We've talked. Mum most of all. We're not ready to pretend nothing happened. But we're not going to leave you on the street either.
Not yet.
Victor nodded. Olivia said, you hurt her. You hurt all of us. Words don't fix that.
I know.
Mia added, you don't get to come back as daddy. Not like before. I'm not asking to. Isabella spoke quietly. But if you stay sober, if you keep working, if you respect boundaries, we might let you visit.
Occasionally. For Mum's sake.
Victor's eyes filled. He blinked hard. Grace finally spoke. I forgave you a long time ago, Victor. Not because you deserved it. Because carrying hate was heavier than carrying pain. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. Or closeness.
Not yet.
He nodded again, unable to speak. Sophia handed him an envelope. Inside, a prepaid debit card with £500 loaded, a list of local support services, and a letter from Daniel outlining conditions. No unannounced visits, no requests for money, regular updates on sobriety, respect for their space. "We're not paying you off," Daniel said. "We're giving you tools. Use them or don't. That's on you." Victor clutched the envelope. "I will." Grace stood. "You can stay for lunch. Just lunch." They ate in near silence. Jollof rice, fried plantain, egusi soup, the same recipes she'd cooked in Ikeja and Soya. Victor ate slowly, tasting memory in every bite. Afterward, he helped clear the table. No one stopped him. When it was time to leave, Grace walked him to the door. "The amulet," she said quietly. "It stopped warming the day you arrived in London. I think it knew you'd found your own way to the bottom." Victor looked at her. "I'm sorry, Grace." "I know." She didn't hug him, but she touched his arm, brief, light. "Come back in 3 months. If you've kept your word." He nodded. Outside, snow had stopped. Sun broke through clouds. Victor walked to the station with the envelope in his pocket, the taste of home still on his tongue. He didn't drink that night, or the next, or the one after. In July 2039, he moved into a small studio flat in Plasto, council-assisted, basic but his. He kept the cleaning job, added weekend shifts at a warehouse. He attended meetings daily. He called Sophia once a month, short updates, no demands. In October, he received an invitation, Grace's 60th birthday lunch at the house. Casual. No pressure. He bought a simple gold bracelet, nothing extravagant, just something delicate. He wrapped it in plain paper. When he arrived, the house smelled of celebration, pounded yam, pepper soup, small chops on trays. The children were there, plus a few friends from church and the Nigerian community in North London. Grace opened the door. She wore a green jewel and matching wrapper, radiant. "Victor." He handed her the gift. "Happy birthday." She opened it. Her eyes softened. "Thank you." She let him in. The afternoon passed quietly. He spoke mostly to the younger ones. Isabella showed him an app she'd built for tracking diaspora remittances. Mia demonstrated a new ballet sequence in the hallway. Daniel watched him carefully, but without hostility. Before he left, Grace pulled him aside in the kitchen. "You kept your word," she said. "I'm trying." She touched the bracelet on her wrist. "Keep trying." He left with a small container of food she'd packed for him. On the tube ride home, he opened it, jollof rice, plantain, a piece of chicken. He ate slowly, tears mixing with the spice. In the spring of 2040, he received a letter from Nigeria. His sister in Enugu had written, their mother had passed peacefully. The family wanted him to come for the burial if possible. He showed the letter to Daniel during one of their monthly coffees at a cafe near King's Cross. Daniel read it. "Do you want to go?" "I don't know if I can face them." "You can't run forever." Victor looked at his son, tall now, steady, a man in his own right. "Will you come with me?" Daniel considered. "If Mum says yes." Grace said yes. They flew together, Victor in economy, Daniel upgrading his father's ticket without asking. The flight was quiet. Victor stared out at clouds, remembering the last time he'd left Nigeria, desperate, broken. Lagos greeted them with heat and noise. The burial was simple, village compound, extended family, hymns under mango trees. Victor stood at the graveside, dry-eyed but hollow. His sister hugged him briefly. "You look different," she said. "Smaller, but cleaner." He stayed 2 weeks. Met old cousins. Visited the old Ikeja flat, now a hair salon. Walked past the school where Grace once sold rice. Sat on a bench in Soya and remembered. When he returned to London, he felt lighter, not forgiven, not whole, but less haunted. Years passed quietly. Victor never remarried. He never asked for more than the occasional Sunday lunch, the yearly Christmas invitation. He worked as a maintenance supervisor in a Canary Wharf office block, steady, unremarkable, enough. Grace lived to see grandchildren, Sophia's daughter named after her, Olivia's twins, Mia's son who danced before he walked. She wore the bracelet every day. The amulet remained in her jewelry box now, no longer needed. One evening in 2045, Victor sat in his small flat watching snow fall outside. His phone buzzed, a message from Daniel. Mum's not feeling well. Come tomorrow. Bring nothing but yourself. He went. Grace lay in bed, frail but peaceful. The family gathered around. She held Victor's hand for the first time in decades. I'm not afraid, she whispered. I am, he said. She smiled. You don't have to be anymore. She slipped away that night, quietly, surrounded by love. At the funeral in London, small, dignified, hymns in Yoruba and English, Victor stood at the back. When it was over, Daniel approached him. She left something for you. In the will, a small wooden box. Inside, the amulet, her wedding ring from their first marriage, and a letter. My dearest Victor, we reaped what we sowed, yes. But sometimes the harvest includes seeds we never knew we planted. You found your way back, even if late. That matters. Keep the amulet. Not for protection anymore. For memory. Grace. Victor held the amulet. It was cool, silent. He wore it under his shirt from that day forward. Not as a charm. As a reminder. That shadows can lift. That broken things can mend, not perfectly, but enough. And that sometimes, the longest road home is the one walked alone, step by trembling step.